Buenas noches. There are two things I know about myself. I really want to be in shape and I'm incredibly lazy. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how I get myself to exercise when I'm one of the laziest people that I know. So on a typical Monday evening around 6 o'clock, I've just worked a full day and I'm completely exhausted. And yet I know one thing. I know that yoga starts at 6 p.m. and that I'm going to take yoga. So this video is about how I do that. It's about exploring the two sides of myself, the side that wants to get in shape and stay in shape, and the side of me that really would rather just be on the couch. So let's jump into that. So I'm going to look at it from three perspectives. The first perspective is the why, the digging into your motivation and how to leverage it so that you do exercise when the time comes. The second thing that I'll look at is the how. Basically, how do you put those motivations in place and structure your exercise in such a way that you can get yourself to do it, even if you're somebody who would rather be on the couch. And then the third thing we'll look at is how to leverage all these things together to build a system so that you're able to exercise consistently. So let's look at the why first. Now, there are a bunch of factors in motivation, and I've talked about this in a lot of other videos, but I'll touch on a few of them now because you want to find the touch points that really motivate you to exercise as much as possible. So I've talked about the idea that there's what's called toward motivation and away from motivation. Toward means, it's something that you want and that you're willing to go for. So, I want to be in shape. I want to have a good physique, and I want to be able to move easily. That's all in the toward front. It's good to have role models, people that maybe you emulate. I like to have freedom of movement. I like to be able to dance. I like to be able to do martial arts. Those are all in the toward motivation category. Now, for me, that's all really important, but what's even more important or more effective for me is the away from motivation. Away from motivation is what are the things that you really will do anything to avoid. It's especially the idea of growing older and not having access to movement and experiencing pain or experiencing a lack of energy. So I'll do a lot to avoid those things. I had an experience recently that really kind of brought this home. I had to go into the doctor and I was in this clinic and I looked around and I saw all these people that were incredibly out of shape. Many of them were sick and barely able to move. And immediately it really lit a fire under me again to even double down on the exercise that I do. And when I get into the how, this will be incredibly important to how to stay on track. So jumping into the how, the first thing that comes to mind for me, because it's been the most effective, is to build a habit. What I've found is that habit ultimately will trump motivation. Once a habit is in place, it's actually harder to not do the thing than to do the thing. So for example, when I would go to Aikido over the years, basically I would go the same days all the time. And if I didn't go, it felt strange. So once the habit was in place, what I found was even if I didn't feel like going on a particular evening, I went. It was just what my body was used to. And I knew that as long as I went, everything would be fine and I would feel good after. Begin building habits. And along those lines, if we get a little bit smart about how we build habits, you want to start with the smallest steps. I always think about this idea of tiny habits. And the idea is to find a step that's so small that you can't resist it. So I always talk about one push-up a day, or getting your exercise clothes ready so that it's easy to get out the door. Just picking some small step that will let you build the ritual. So that's the first thing we want to lean into, is building a habit. Second thing that really helps me is leaning into community if at all possible. Again, with Aikido or when I have taken yoga or dance class, there gets to be a community aspect. Maybe there are people that you go with every week or that you see, and it can become a sort of an accountability structure. And it can just be a social structure that helps you show up with some consistency. But I find if you can add a level of community, that can be really powerful as well. Now let's talk about how these two factors, the motivation and the how they work together to keep you moving over time. One thing that I notice is if I'm sitting on the couch and I don't want to exercise, for example, I have a way of thinking about my motivation that helps get me off the couch. And it's a combination of the things that I've talked about. The first thing is that I make it incredibly easy. So I don't, if I'm sitting on the couch, I'm not thinking, oh, I've got to go across town and go running for 5 miles. That would be too big and I would just stay on the couch. All I think about is, okay, I have this stupid small step to take. Or maybe it's just like, okay, I'm going to do 5 minutes of stretching and that's what I'm committing to. So that's the first thing, is thinking of the stupid small step. The second thing is I make a comparison of doing that step and getting my long-term result or not getting my long-term result. So if I'm sitting there on the couch and I'm thinking, well, I don't even want to do that little bit of stretching or the walk around the block, I might think, well, what would the impact of that be in the next, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? And I literally imagine, how will I be if I do this consistently? And how will I be if I don't? And that's the one that usually gets me going. But for some people, it's just the positive motivation. In Aikido, we do these rolls. We do front rolls, we do back rolls. And if you said, Rob, do you want to do 10 rolls? I might think, no, that's, I'd rather just lay around and not do anything. But when I think of, okay, what's going to be the impact if I do 10 rolls a day over a year, over the next 5 years, I can imagine how healthy I'll be. And that's pretty much how I jumped into yoga as well. Going to yoga class seemed like, oh man, this is a hassle. This is a lot of work. It may be a challenge, but I thought, what's my physique going to be like after 5 years of doing yoga versus after 5 years of not doing yoga? And for me, that motivational structure keeps me locked into this daily ritual that builds the whole system. The other thing that I layer to this idea of putting it all together is I really try to have a huge menu of types of exercise that I really enjoy. There's a lot of stretching, for example, that just feels great. If you're at the end of a kind of a tense day, it feels great to stretch. It feels good to go for a run and kind of, work energy through your body. So I really try to leverage the things, at least when I'm getting going on a given workout, I try to leverage the things that just feel best, so that every day I'm actually drawn to do those things. And I'm also imagining how I'm going to feel when I'm done. And that's kind of the last piece for me, is I'm not thinking about, oh, this is going to be a difficult workout. I think, oh my God, when I'm done with this workout, I'm going to feel great. I'm going to feel relaxed, ready to enjoy my evening. So that for me is like the icing on the cake that helps the whole structure stay in place. I'll compare this to what a lot of people do. A lot of people, like back on our hypothetical couch, they sit on the couch and they think about exercising. They think, yeah, that'd be a great idea. But then they dwell on how difficult that will be, how difficult it'll be that day, how difficult it'll be over time. And if you're thinking in that way, you're going to stay on the couch. The couch is going to win every time. But instead, if you're on the couch and you think, wow, if I keep doing this just a little bit every day, I'll be healthy in the long run, versus if I don't, I'm really going to struggle. I'm going to have a lack of mobility. I might experience a lot of pain in my body. Those are kind of the two different thought structures, and I just make sure that I stay in the lane of the thought structure that moves me forward. So I hope this was helpful for you. I'll link a couple of videos on the bottom specifically about motivation and about habit building that will help reinforce this, and I hope you enjoyed that.